Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about the PVE Ishtar. This is the Ishtar fit that I use to run combat sites in Syndicate. The reason I run those sites is because it's really easy ISK when you're bored. It takes you an hour, 2 hours, depending on whether you're solo or not, and you can run a site and make anywhere from 100 mil to a billion ISK in only an hour or two. It's definitely worth it, and it's one of the best ways to make ISK in EVO Online. So, as a requirement, you need to be in nullsec. Doesn't really matter what kind of nullsec. For this example, we want it to be Serpentis nullsec, which the only ones I know for sure are Syndicate and Fountain. There's probably more than that, but those are the two that I know right off the top of my head. The reason we use the Ishtar is because the Ishtar has built-in standard resists towards the Serpentis damage types of kinetic and thermal, with kinetic being the primary damage type and thermal being the secondary. The reason for this is because Galante is like in battle with Serpentis. That's their enemy. You'll see that in EVE in a lot of cases. The balance mechanic that each race fits for or has a specialty towards its enemy, especially in the heavy assault cruisers. You'll notice the heavy assault cruisers of every race have high resists that match the damage types of that race's rats, as well as that race's enemy. You'll see Galante has a high kinetic resist for their hacks. The reason for that is because Caldari, their story enemy, is heavily kinetic damage output. So this fit, there's nothing special about it. It's not great, it's not amazing, it's nothing really special. It's a basic fit, it's easy to fit. You see there's tons of power grid left over. It's a little bit tight on CPU, but you can save CPU in so many ways here. You can take and go to meta shielded extenders. I wouldn't. Before I did that, I would think about potentially dropping a drone damage amplifier and exchanging that with something else. But it's relatively easy to fit. Now, a quick note, if you're going to be running these sites, I don't recommend you run them solo with an Ishtar unless you have good skills. I can run most combat sites in Syndicate solo with an Ishtar. I haven't come across one that I couldn't. The prison camp, which is the one you're going to see in the video right after this EFT presentation, the prison camp was actually a challenge where I had to warp out and warp back in. To make it a little bit easier, in the last room, you can afterburner away. Just do a 180 once you get in that last room. Afterburner directly away from everything, and you'll notice that the DPS goes down quite a bit, and you can drop your sentries, kill off the web towers, then kill off the frigates, and go from there. And then once you get to the final facility of the prison camp, which is I don't know if it's the best combat site, but it's the most common one I come across that reliably pays out. Even when it doesn't drop the Vindicator blueprint, the prison camp usually pays me at least 200 million ISK between the bounties and the mods and the overseer's effects and all that good stuff. So the prison camp's really the one you want to be looking for ideally, but there's other ones that are worth running as well. You'll notice in my fit I don't have the railguns. I'll probably add them after this video because originally I was running my Ishtar with salvagers. I figured I would use a tractor unit and I would use salvagers, and I would salvage as I ran the mission, let my drones do all the work while I salvaged. It's a viable strategy, but salvage prices are just so low that all the salvage you get for running a Plex like this, combat site, still only amounts up to less than 10 million ISK usually. So it's really not worth your time. You're better off with a little bit more damage, and it is a little bit. It's only like 100 extra DPS, 94.8. That's with good skills. So it's marginal, but it helps. Just to go over some of the things about the Ishtar, it's a basic fit. It's shield, buffer, and passive recharge. The buffer, you see 96,000 effective hit points. Recharge is 337, but that's actually against Serpentis rats. I've got that selected. I went into edit custom profiles and I actually set up kinetic thermal damage type for the Serpentis so you can see what they do. If you look at uniform, stats aren't nearly as good, but against Serpentis, they're pretty awesome. I've got an afterburner on this because it's not just, its tank doesn't just come from its shield. Its tank also comes from the fact that it's moving, which is the reason the final room of the prison camp is a little bit dangerous, and the reason why you may need to warp out several times. I had to warp out several times. But if you use that trick by turning around and quickly moving backwards away from everything, once you come into the Plex, you're going to do a little bit better than I did. So you can also tweak your hardeners here. You can overload them and things start going bad. You see your shield getting, you know, around 50% or lower and dropping steady. You want to go ahead and overload. Take that 2 minutes. You can actually split these up and put on each side of the rack so that you have longer overload time. But that'll get you a little bit more defense and time to stay alive. Another trick is I highly suggest you run these sites with, I'd say, 2, maybe 3 more people. And ideally, I think a team of about 3 people can do them fairly easily and quickly. And once you're in a squad or a fleet, you can get the squad bonuses from the leadership skills. And if they're good, you get 10% extra shield hit points, which you see improves the tank quite a bit. That definitely helps. So shield core defense purgers, those increase your shield recharge time. Hardeners, we're hardening specifically against the Serpentis DPS. Afterburner to speed tank the battleship rats. Drone damage amplifiers to increase our drone damage. The Ishtar is a drone boat, I'm sure you know. Heavy drone max velocity and tracking speed. Heavy drone hit points damage. Sentry drone range tracking. Drone range, drone control range. All that good stuff. I use the Wardens primarily because they can hit. Their optimal is, I believe, 100k. Let's have a look. Yeah, 103. 103k. Your targeting range is 100k. So basically you can drop those and you can hit things at range. Oftentimes what I'll do is I'll drop those if all the rats are, say, 60 and beyond. I'll drop those and then I'll just work my way through all the frigates and the cruisers and the battleships, but you know how to do all that. If something comes within 30k, your Wardens may have trouble tracking, in which case you could throw out the Ogre 2s. Ogre 2s give you more DPS, 874 instead of 658. So they are preferable when the targets are close by. If the targets are at distance, then the time you're going to lose with the Ogres having to travel from target to target means that you're going to actually be putting out less effective DPS, which is why damage projection is so important in missions, PVE, you know, any kind of ratting. Damage projection is huge. Being able to hit with, what's that, 563 DPS with these Wardens at 100k in every direction instantly, that's pretty huge for clearing out a Plex very quickly, which makes it ideal for ratting. It's an ideal PVE ship. That's pretty much it. Just to talk a little bit more about the kind of money you can make. The Vindicator pays, it's worth 700-800 mil, plus you get the Overseer's effect, which I think is worth 80 mil. I'm not positive. And typically you'll also get some other mods, Core B type or Serpentis, Shadow Serpentis. You can get some good drops. Sometimes the drops are terrible, sometimes they're great. I found that the blueprint drops from the final, when you blow up that final prison administration facility, I found it's about roughly 20% odds, like 1 in 5. So you got a 20% chance of it dropping. That's been my experience. I don't know if that's the actual odds. Maybe the actual odds are 1 in 10 and I've just been lucky. Maybe it's vice versa, I don't know. But if you're running this thing solo and you make 800 mil, then that's pretty good for an hour, 2 hours of your effort. If you run it with 2 or 3 people, you still make pretty good money, because with 2 or 3 people you're going to do it much faster, maybe in 20 minutes or so. And it's really good ISK for time invested. You find these sites in all SOV, not all SOV, all nullsec, SOV and NPC. You only want to use the Ishtar for Serpentis rats. For other rats, such as Guristas, you would want to use a Kaldari ship. Which one? I'm not sure. I don't rat Guristas. Maybe the Tengu. I don't know. But Ishtar's a really great ship for it. I suggest you do it with 2 or 3 people if you're new to it. Once you get better at it, you can attempt to do it solo. It's reasonable to think that you can make at least 200 million ISK an hour doing this if you get good at it. And there are people who are very good at it who can make far more than that, to the tune of maybe $500 million an hour. I've heard that those people use usually multi-box with multiple accounts.